Enschede.
Enschede in the Netherlands.
The only place in the Netherlands that we actually got to go and stay. Although we did stop in Rotterdam.
Yeah, I have to say that uh, I wasn't too crazy about the idea of doing this episode because I don't want to talk about Enschede as the Netherlands because it's like talking about United States after having gone to San Marcos.
Yeah, or going to Mexico after staying in Zamora for a week.
Yeah,
It's like, and I think that that's actually really interesting because in the United States, we actually do kind of run our country as if we're catering to the small town demographic. Like, that's who we're always trying to get excited about really controversial topics. That's who we're always reaching out for because it's like we're reaching out to essentially a suburb to say, hey, you like everybody, don't you?
hmm.
And it's not really true. And it's not really true because because a lot of people live in small towns, not because they're farming, but because they like small town ideals. And small town ideals means whatever the majority thinks, that's what we all think. I mean, it's kind of like La Grande Seduction,
Hmm. The
where
movie, a movie,
yeah, which is a movie where a doctor comes from Mexico City to this little town,
village. Yeah,
and people are trying to get him to stay, not because the town is quote unquote so great, but because if they get him to stay, then they'll get just enough investment to keep the town going.
yeah.
Like it's not, and then they'll be rich.
Hmm.
No, it's and then our spouses won't have to leave. Our children won't always leave. There will actually be something to offer.
Yeah,
And so, Enschede, it's it is a train stop, but I guess also using Mexico kind of as the metaphor. That's not really all that interesting because Zamora has a bus stop,
yeah,
and San Marcos not only has a bus stop but has a university, like a university system, the Texas State University, which used to be back in the day Southwest Texas State University. And Enschede is no different. It does have a university.
yeah,
It has a cute little downtown that's very walkable, and it has access. Now, what is interesting is that in the way of all small towns, the sidewalks are really constrained to the inner core. Like when we went to the university, there weren't really a lot of like if we had wanted to walk there and we thought about it, um, there like the sidewalk breaks off because they assume you're either in a car or on a bus
or on a bicycle.
or on a bike. Yes,
Yeah,
and in that way, Enschede is really like the rest of the Netherlands in that it's very, very bike friendly.
very very bike friendly. Maybe too bike friendly because eh, we as pedestrians we were continuously keeping an eye over our shoulder because the bicycles don't stop for nobody, and there's more cyclist infrastructure than pedestrian infrastructure, and so it was very very confusing where to find where to walk safely, because you either needed to walk on the road and watch for cars, or walk on a bike path and watch for bicycles.
So, which leads you to think, oh, well, then maybe I should just buy a car. And and in small towns, uh, there are a lot of cars.
Yeah, or get a bicycle like
Yeah.
most people do. Uh, Now we weren't there in the winter.
No, thank goodness.
We were there right before the real cold weather started. Um, but there were parts. For example, we got there on the train, and we had our luggage and my bicycle and blah blah blah, and we were trying to get a big Uber to take us to my cousin's house because of the size of my bicycle box. And no Uber wanted to take us because all of them were sedan cars, regular small cars, and
Or compact cars, as we say in the U.S.
compact cars. And so my cousin had to go pick us up walking because they don't own a car, because they don't need a car.
Right.
Uh, and so they guided us home, uh, walking, but for the size of the because of the size of the bicycle box, uh, we were walking and carrying it with a dolly, and sometimes we were invading the bike path. Sometimes we were invading the path for the cars, uh, but there was no place for pedestrians.
And for people who might think, hey, why didn't you just put the bicycle together and ride it? Well, okay, great. That gets exactly one thing back to the house. We still had the rest of this. Let's even go full throttle and say you could carry a backpack on your back. Okay, that gets you two things to the house. You still have to get the rest of the stuff to the house, and to get the bicycle back to Mexico, it was going to have to be in a box.
Yeah,
And I don't think people understand how difficult it is to actually find bicycle boxes, even in areas where there are lots of bicycles. Because when we were leaving Austin, and Austin is known throughout Texas for the MS 150, the bike from Houston to Austin. We have a very strong cycling, recreational cycling community. So we have bike shops. I mean, and though people might not want to accept this, because problematic Lance Armstrong, is from Austin, we had a lot of people who were like, all right, cycling. And that's great. Except for the fact that due to the higher income of the neoliberal elites, they buy their bicycles consistently. They buy a bicycle and the shop throws the box away and we all move on with our lives. So finding an actual bicycle box, like when we were in Zamora, even at a bicycle shop, they didn't have one.
yeah,
And we were lucky to actually find a bicycle shop in Brussels.
yeah,
Because that's where you got the box, right?
yeah. Yeah, and they always given normally they always given for free. I Of the two or three bicycle boxes that I've gotten ever since I started traveling with my bicycle, Nobody has ever charged uh, charged me for it. They have always given it to me for free. Uh, but yeah, Enschede, small town, rural background, university uh, background, very young population, very picturesque downtown with its own market, very beautiful market on Sundays.
Leaves were gorgeous.
Yeah, uh, its its bosses are I don't know. I think they were very fancy.
They were. And I think that does actually go along with the whole please don't drive attitude
Yeah,
that they have in the Netherlands. So I think that that's, and to me, I think that that also speaks to how the greater part of a city works, where it's like, all right, we don't, the greater part of a country works, excuse me, to basically have cities be small scale of what the country does. And that's actually, and I, like I said, with the three countries that we've been mentioning here, some, I don't know, does Zamora have a college in it?
yeah,
Okay, so basically uh, a university, and then buses and mass transit out of there and to there. And so yeah, so nice buses.
yeah,
That is very consistent with it.
yeah. Also, I think um, um, did we see a lot of diversity?
We did. I was very surprised because anybody who's black in the United States knows you don't go to small towns unless you know that it is a small town of black people, maybe Latino people, but not. But you are definitely not going to a small majority population town, because if you do, people are going to be nasty to you. You're not necessarily going to get what you need, and it's just not great. Now, people might think that the reason that there's diversity in the Netherlands is because there's a university, but I actually disagree, because I was actually surprised by the fact, just like when we went to Brussels and there were all these black people walking around, like, yeah, and and that was refreshing, because in fact we even went to, because your cousin was there, and obviously he is Mexican,
Mhm.
but lots of people there spoke Spanish.
Yeah,
Like, we were able to go to a party, and I actually felt bad because I was living in my gringo world speaking my English. Unfortunately, everybody's used to folks from the U.S. Basically being dumb and speaking English. But no, it was actually a very easy party to be at because people could talk to you.
yeah. There was a guy from Portugal, but he also spoke Spanish very fluently. Uh, there were people from the United States, a guy from California, and
The UK.
there was a guy from UK, uh, a couple of German people, um, many Mexicans,
And an
four,
Italian.
and an Italian. True, yeah, right.
Just
You're right.
just because why not?
Yeah,
And yes, these were people who were part of who originally started as part of a master's program, but that's, again, we were not surprised that both of us could get around in Enschede, because, and another reason for the kind of the development of Enschede, because they're not crazy building like all the other places, but they are kind of aware that they have to cater. People in Enschede basically commute to places like Amsterdam
Yeah.
or Rotterdam,
Yeah.
which is also very similar to places like San Marcos, where you commute to Austin.
Yeah.
Or, well, Zamora's a little far. Although I bet people do it.
Maybe.
Zamora's a little far from Guadalajara, or the other direction, I guess. No, nobody's commuting from Zamora to Ciudad Mexico. But no, so it's both a relatively small town, but also a commuter town.
Yeah. Um, we didn't see. I didn't see a big community of um people from Turkey as
No,
compared to other cities in Europe that we were to that we were in.
that might be because of size.
Maybe, yeah. Uh,
Because the restaurant that we ordered from the first night, they were Turkish.
yeah. And there, I had a problem in the Netherlands. I didn't have that problem in France, nor in Belgium, uh, nor in the UK. I mean, in London, with ATMs. I
Yes,
couldn't
that's
with
where it
yeah.
started.
I could never withdraw money from any ATM anywhere in Enschede. My cousin told me that recently some company acquired all of like before there were ATMs from different banks, but uh, recently some company got hold of all of the ATMs and they painted them yellow or put yellow ATMs instead of the old ones, and none of them recognize my card, even though that my card is Mastercard.
And it was used all over Europe before then.
Yeah,
Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, you know, it was used in London, but not in Paris. It was used in little cities in France, but not in Brussels. No, your card had been used the entire time,
yeah,
except for Enschede.
except for Enschede. And did you experience racism
No,
in Enschede?
no. Basically, people were, again, because there were already black people there. I wasn't the first. Now, probably covert racism, because that's what actually neoliberalism does in the United States, where it's like, oh no, we don't have a problem with you. We're just not going to promote you, live near you, or actually serve you consistently. But I was able to function in Enschede, which was nice. And being able to exist, because when I was in a little town in France, um, there, like, it was weird. There were, like, I was, because I was at this location, and they were either looking down at me because I was black, or because I was American, or both. But they were like, okay. And I was like, I am not here for free. What is happening? But in Enschede, they're just like, they really do mind the business that pays them.
Where was where was it that you witnessed?
Where that guy was insane, that was Brussels.
No, the cops.
Oh, the cops, that was Paris.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, where the cops were basically searching bags randomly. And as someone from the US, I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. And not like in a store, maybe. Like in a store, okay, they're making sure that this place is not getting robbed consistently. But at a transit station, who are you? Like, what exactly is happening here? But that's all part of that control that we talked about in Paris,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh no, we all an autist from the 1920s, but we are controlling you with our manicured lawns and our manicured buildings and our consistency. And Enschede, like I said, I and actually people said that's because in the Netherlands, and I take this with a grain of salt because I do love salt. They say, oh, but that's because people are more self-contained and they don't really engage with anybody else. I don't actually believe that, but I believe that it does make it easier for people to kind of mind the business that pays them
Yeah.
and not harass people because they're existing.
Yeah. I did enjoy the library
Oh, that was
in
fun.
downtown. We went to the university once, to the campus of the University of Twente, TWENTE, uh, and
And for folks from the U.S., no, it's not 20.
yeah, and it's a very very beautiful campus. It has buildings from many different architectural periods, brutalism, contemporary, etc., etc. Their libraries, it's one of the most impressive libraries that I've been into, because it had uh, many many rooms with many different uh, silence levels. For example, there was a room, a huge hall, in which it was like a regular library, like please be be quiet. But then there was another one that was like, please, like you
Say
must,
nothing.
yeah, say nothing. And inside of that one, also had booths of
Take a nap.
no, it had these booths to
Oh, no.
like probably with silence, with noise absorption or something. But suppose I didn't use them, but supposedly you could get inside of them and be completely
And like meditate
in
or
a complete,
something.
yeah, complete silence, like soundproof. Uh, but still, like in every library, there's a lot of people.
There's always that guy.
There's always that guy or that girl,
For those
always,
folks.
yeah, always chatting. And that library was nice. And then
But you
we,
know what library it reminds me of?
what?
Iteso.
Oh yeah,
Because Iteso just got a new library, and that is I was like, oh my gosh, this is almost like the University of Twente.
yeah. And of course, that happened after I graduated.
That's how it works.
Yeah, the library wasn't that fancy when I was studying it there, but then we also went to the library in downtown Enschede. That one was very nice. That one was a building from the 60s. Very very beautiful too.
And so comfortable.
Very comfortable. Yeah, they had this thing that I found interesting, that it was like a, they called it human library or something.
Yes, oh gosh, human history.
Yeah, basically there was a guy outside who explained us the concept. Basically, you go inside and you can talk, or not talk, but listen to this person who is gonna tell you their story.
I guess you could interview if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And they were people, they were refugee people, refugees from countries in war. and so you could listen
and
to very interesting stories.
transgendered,
And transgender, yeah, truth,
which was interesting because they were older.
truth. That was also very important. That was a very important aspect of that. We didn't do that because we went twice.
Right.
The first time we went to, we didn't have that much time, and the second time we went to, we had all the time in the world, but we had
But
our
they weren't
own.
there.
They weren't there, and we also had our own projects to work on.
But basically, that is a good example. Like, that is a great example of a library kind of being a library. Because the way I understand a lot, and in fact, um, they even had a cafe that was attached to the library because they're like, look, if you're going to go to the library, now, of course, they don't want you touching their books with your chocolate hands, but in general, they're like, look, if you're going to be here for a long time, like if you're studying or if you're passing time until Susie gets out of school or whatever you're doing, uh, you need a place to be, and there's bathroom, and there's bathroom, and there's cafe, and there's outlet. Now, what I did not see were large groups of unhoused people, which makes me think, yeah, okay, they could be hidden, but I would actually venture to guess that in Enschede, that is either A, not a real problem, or B, if people were having problems being housed in Enschede, they'd be like, all right, well, let's deal with this. And so that is different from a library experience in the United States because we didn't actually we spent some time at the university at ITESO's library, but we haven't really spent that much time in public libraries in Mexico, so I can't comment on those.
Um, I also noticed a particular thing about Enschede is that houses are very open. They
Yes.
have their windows with the windows open, and you can get a peek at how people live. And most of the houses that we saw were very beautiful. And my cousin's girlfriend told us two things that I found particularly interesting. Number one, uh, they keep them open because that's a cultural thing. Because the Netherlands, being I mean, the history of the Netherlands and being a city, a country with access to rivers all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and basically having been an empire, uh, there was a lot of naval culture. So their men used to go to the sea for months, and
And they engage with countries all over the world.
yeah, and so being I think it's called they were Lutheran, or
That sounds right, but but we'll look that up and put that in the notes.
yeah, being like that. Well, what's the word for the for when being faithful in your marriage or unfaithful?
Monogamous.
Yeah, monogamous. But what's the word for? Oh, adultery.
Yeah,
Like
adultery.
adultery was a very serious thing. So they culturally, housewives have to keep their windows open. I mean, their curtains open all the time when their husbands were not around,
Wow.
so that all the town could make sure that the woman was being faithful to her husband who was at sea. Uh,
That is interesting.
yeah, but in number two, uh, but at the same time, she told me that it's kind of it's kind of frowned upon peeking into other people's living rooms.
Especially now because everybody's like, look, mind your business.
Yeah, but the houses were so beautiful and the living rooms were so cozy in most of the neighborhoods that we walk through that I couldn't help but peeking.
Well, you're an architect, but but also one of the things that they talked about, okay, big wide open windows, cannot open any of them. And so, with climate change being what it is and things getting hotter, one of the things that some of the residents were like, this is absolute torture in the summertime now. Now, of course, in the Netherlands, summertime used to be like, what, flipping 4 months out of the year? But, well, 2 to 3 months out of the year. But now you've got higher temperatures for 4 or 5 months. And yes, it may be dark and cold for a lot of the year, but one of the things that we've talked about is the ability to be able to open a window and not have to use air conditioning. So basically creating all of these houses where you are reliant on HVAC is that's a short-term solution, because again, they have the light. They have these huge windows to let light in, and that's fair because especially if you go to the university, you might experience seasonal affective disorder, where you just get really depressed when it's cold and dark. Then it's like, no, you want to let in as much light as possible. But if you can't open it during the nice season, it's like, so our energy bills are going to be high, regardless. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned the naval culture, because, of course, the Netherlands is where the Dutch East India Trading Company um, was uh, originated. And so this is what's left of this empire.
Yeah.
This is what's left of this empire. And it's like, yes, it's very attractive. Uh, Everyone's there, but it's like, yeah, but how did it get this way?
Yeah.
How was it built? How did this come to be? Uh, but but at least these former imperialists are kind of like, okay, no, imperialism is not the way to go anymore, in theory.
Yeah. Talking about traces of an empire, in the Netherlands we saw a lot of remnants of the Nazis of the Second
Mm.
World War.
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing those the first time that I noticed a remnant of the Second World War was when I was uh, about to cross the border from France to Belgium, when I saw these abandoned bunkers in the middle of the fields, of the cornfields, in the French in the French forests. But here in the Netherlands, we saw these plaques, these bronze plaques in front of houses.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I didn't think too much of them, but then my cousin's partner explained to me that those plaques commemorate the or talk about the people who were living in those houses were Jewish people who were taken away from their homes uh, when Germany invaded the Netherlands, and they started their ethnic cleansing program and taking away Jewish people from their homes. So that's what those bronze plaques in front of the houses were. So somehow they kept track, or people uh, gave people started documenting who was deported, who was taken away by the Nazis, where did they live, and I mean the logistics behind uh, the investigation, the research behind all of that is only possible, or could have only been possible after the very very meticulous uh, German bureaucracy, because they had, and this is something that we will talk about in the next episode
Oh, the last
in
one's gonna
Berlin.
be long. I just
Yeah,
like we're warning you now. The last one's gonna be long.
yeah. But just to give a hint of what's coming, uh, we learned that the Nazis were very very meticulous and very bureaucratic when it comes to to do what they did. They kept track of every spoon, every fork that everybody had, and but yeah, that was one of the remnants that we saw of the Second World War. There was another. There was also a house, which it was the only house inside of a very beautiful park,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that house now hosts a cafe. We didn't go, but my cousin told us that that house housed the Nazis when they invaded that part of the Netherlands, and they used it as an bureaucratic office of some sort. And my cousin told me that they have uh, there exhibited some papers, some documents with the Nazi logo
Mm-hmm.
on stamps or whatever. Uh, that was another thing, and we also saw a couple of statues, right?
Yes, like there was one that was in the park that was on our way to another side of town,
Mm-hmm.
and it talked about the soldiers who died. Um, and I think your point about the bureaucracy is really important because as fascism has resurfaced, that's like this is when the history writers need to get it together. What didn't happen in the past was a lot of literate people basically getting together and documenting. That is the job now. That is the job of all the technology now. It is now the time of technology to start saying, hey, we saw this, and this is how it went down. Because in the past, like there were two sides of the story. There were the Nazis and there was everybody else. But there were the Nazis and then there was the people who defeated the Nazis. And there was no nuance. A lot of countries, especially the United States, got heavily propagandized about who was quote unquote the good guys and the bad guys. And that's the way it is. And the bureaucracy that was involved in putting things in classrooms, putting things in universities, publishing, etc., was very consistent and meticulous. They like people know why you think the United States is the great savior. People know why you think that anything other than XYZ is bad, because they made sure of it.
Yeah.
And and basically uh, and basically understanding that also helps you understand why it's like, oh, this is why we think this of this. Because another thing that we were told, speaking of crumbling empires, while we were there, is that the university is starting to lose clout. The university is kind of starting to have issues. And is it because nobody thinks things? I highly disagree. I think the issue is that basically the whole notion of an institution controlling knowledge is starting to diminish, because that's what we've been seeing in the United States for a long time. Now, the real reason is because uh, basically costs are too high, return is too low, and uh, basically the whole fantasy of I graduate from high school, I go to college, and then I get a good job and have a middle class life, that's gone. But also, it's like if you have knowledge, share it. You don't have to go through all these gatekeepers to read and write the information, and you almost shouldn't. So that's another interesting thing about Enschede, because what happens to the city when it's just a small town and
Yeah.
it's not a university town?
Yeah. And one parallel that I found between the Netherlands and the US is that uh, the hand labor cost of fixing things in your house is also very high. And so people also, just like in the US, they tend to homeowners or landlords uh, tend to know how to fix leaks, fix broken things, and they basically are also very handy, and so they take the problems with their hands and they fix them with their own hands, because paying somebody else to do it is very expensive. Um,
So
uh,
either they're handy or they're rich. Those are their options.
yeah, the owner of the house where we stayed at, where my cousin and his partner live, it's it's owned by a doctor, and that doctor lives somewhere else, and he rents that house, and it was a duplex.
Mm-hmm.
It was the ground floor and the first floor. First floor was of somebody else. So you basically enter. You had to cross a couple of doors to get inside. Uh, and some other person lived upstairs. Uh, the house was very beautiful, big kitchen. Uh, the kitchen and the dining room was one,
Mm-hmm.
and the living room was on the side. It had a big garden. Um, but yeah, it was a place where we kind of got the gist of the Netherlands culture. Which one thing that I didn't like is the and again the control, because
Yes.
we were I felt like my cousin and his partner were a bit too worried about us breaking the unspoken rules of that culture, either by walking on a bike lane or speaking
Above a decibel.
above a decibel. Yeah, exactly. Because I felt like they were like all the time, like with this anxiety in the back of their minds, like no, it's just that uh, uh, if you do it, somebody's gonna shout at you and but I'm happy, we're happy to be here, we're so lucky, we don't want to leave, but yeah, don't speak too loud
Oh
and
my gosh. And that's exactly like it is in the US. It's like a hostage
like
situation.
a hostage.
We love working hard and paying too much. We love working hard and pay. Wait, do you really? We love working hard and paying too much. And then if you don't love working hard and paying too much, then somebody with a gun comes out and says, "Sing it."
Yeah.
And now we're allowed to shout that we love working hard and paying too much, but we are not allowed to say anything other than that.
Yeah.
And so it really doesn't. And I think because we've mentioned control uh, in in both Paris and the Netherlands. And I think that that is another example of how imperialism plays into it. It's like you don't think about it until you have internalized it, and then they don't even have to do anything to you anymore. You don't have to get in trouble for it.
No, because you are your own cop.
You are your own cop, and that is the best way to brainwash populations into believing rules.
Have we talked about the panopticon prison?
Oh my gosh.
I don't think we have.
No, we haven't. Where was that?
Panopticon prison is a concept.
Okay, no, we haven't talked about that.
It's a concept of prisons in which they build the basically the jails around a station in which there might be or there might be not somebody watching. So it's basically a round prison. In the center of that round prison, there is a station for the guards, but you cannot see if the guards are in or not. It's a very interesting architectural concept.
No, it is. That's why I'm saying nothing, because this is interesting.
And so basically, what the inmates feel is they feel constantly observed,
Yes.
even if they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point is that at some point the inmates start policing themselves because they don't know who might be watching, when they might be watching, and so it's a very efficient prison system that, if you think about it, can be applied not only to prisons but to
Capitalism in general, because seriously, how many times have you and I talked about basically people who have just, they refuse to have any other concept than everything is fine and I just need to do more. Like that is actually, like, one of the reasons why it was so important to change the concept of global warming to a conversation about whether or not you're recycling or sorting your organics uh, and whether or not you littered is because basically that puts the onus on the individual. And when you put the onus on the individual, wow, the panopticon prison. There's actually a name for it. I love
Yeah.
that.
It's basically like now it's like having a camera. You don't know if the camera is seeing you. You don't even know if the camera works. But just having the camera pointing at you, uh, at the I don't know at the resting room on your in your office.
Mm-hmm.
Just having a camera there when you're gonna put that mug back in the sink, you're like, I'm gonna wash it. I'm gonna wash it very good because who knows who might be watching, and I don't want any trouble. So you become your own cop.
Well, and think about it. That's also the case of those huge windows on all the houses, too.
True.
And that's actually what we thought when we see in the United States those houses where it's literally everybody can see into your house.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, well, you just get blinds or just get curtains. It's like, why would you build a house where everybody can see what's going on in your home? What is that? like we're gonna wait and go into the bed, like the running gag that you and I had where we're like, we're gonna wait and go into our bedroom to have our argument because we're on stage here. But no.
Yeah, I actually learned that from a book from a Netherlands architect, Rem Koolhaas. That's a concept that I read about from a Netherlands architect.
Well, that's totally appropriate then.
Yeah.
No, and that was one of the reasons why we were a little bit frustrated. We couldn't actually go to Rotterdam or Amsterdam because that is where Rem Koolhaas, of course.
Yeah.
That's where he's on stage.
Yeah. We'll do that next time we go to Europe.
Yes.
I hope we go to Prague and to Amsterdam and Rotterdam and explore more of Berlin. Because wow, what a city! But that will be for the next.
Look, episode. I'm telling y'all, there's gonna be especially now. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
About our impression of Berlin and imperialism.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot. Yeah. But no, that's that element of quiet control. It's important that people start understanding that, because understanding that makes it easier than having to struggle and fight to get out of a system of control once it's already been internalized.
Yeah. For me, being Mexican, that's very, very strange to me, because in Mexico there's no control. Everybody does what they want to do, and that comes with its own set of problems. But you don't ever feel imprisoned. In some ways you feel imprisoned because of the danger of being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But that's everywhere.
Yeah. But you don't ever feel like you might be shouted by a stranger because you broke some unspoken rule that everybody knows but you. Nobody is gonna shout at you because you spoke a decibel too high.
They will ignore you, but they won't say anything to you.
So to me, I don't know. This trip made me appreciate more and miss my country. It made me appreciate a lot of cool things about Europe. uh, and I wish Mexico had some of those things, but it also made me appreciate a lot of things that my country has that Europe doesn't have. But yeah, that will be my conclusion on this
No,
episode.
I think that said it all. And yes, the last one where we are going to be talking about Berlin. Yes, that will be long.
Probably
So
it will be in two parts. We don't
yeah,
know.
probably will be in two parts. But no, but we are excited to get to it.
Oh yeah,
All
a lot to
right.
talk about.
So this is us signing out. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.